So your MSO you have exclusive agreement is not serving that customer. That's not their customer. So we can't negate the grant and the purpose for the ARA grant, stimulus grant, to hold a franchise agreement that is never serving that customer anyway. So it's all about providing access to, remember, we're not selling services. This is infrastructure. So we're providing the infrastructure to that premise, for example. If Charter wants to use that backbone, because that's a new customer to Charter, a Charter would still have to amend that agreement to touch that customer anyway, because the reason they didn't build there because it's not profitable. So what this is an opportunity for Charter to enhance that franchise agreement, is what this is.
You're saying it would have to be amended to now include.
That's what
yes,
I'm saying.
yes.
Because that agreement then doesn't affect.
But it doesn't affect the network, however, but a service provider would have to amend that coverage area to include those persons that still touch points area. And provide that service provider with additional customers. And they would have to come back to the city, remember, and amend their franchise agreement to include the service.
If they want to keep the exclusivity, and they don't want to keep the exclusivity, then somebody else can service that.
Well, the exclusivity precludes in one aspect again, at that point. But go back again, but the value of the network allows them to include those people.
I raised that question because I think some additional discussion should need to be done around that because I don't think it's the way we can answer that question. I don't think it's the answer.
Discussion around what?
Exclusivity and franchise agreements that current cities may have. I don't think we've done enough research on that because the cities themselves, whether they have service out there or not, will have an agreement with a provider. And that's more in terms of cable. Whether they provide cable out there or not, the cities have signed an agreement with that provider.
And maybe what we should do is,
Yes.
maybe what we should do is have a follow-up meeting.
I think so.
The mayor's office.
Because those questions are going to come up.
And it's a valid questions because part of the census tract, what the census tract says, this is federal data that we provide through the census. I don't have it. If I have it, it's down, or it doesn't pass by my house at all. Well, if we continue to do as we're doing today, tomorrow they still won't have anything. So maybe we need to look at our agreements to see if they can be modified to accommodate who's being oppressed, right? Because people are being oppressed and not being, afforded an opportunity to better themselves, to improve their quality of life.
That's all that is.
And this may not be the political thing to say, but we have seen, and that's why we're here.
You better know.
That's why we're here. And we cannot stand any longer the oppression that's occurred. And we're going to place the fiber in the ground. And we're going to place fiber in Selma. And we're going to pass by several hundred houses. And they may have dial-up, they may have cable, they may be happy with what they have. But your next door neighbor may not have it. Or you got to extend another 100 feet, another mile down the road where Ms. Johnson is not offered that because the incumbent chooses not to go there.
But I think that the key to what Mr. Green's saying is that the franchises don't get into that.
I understand.
And I think that it's going to take a real Herculean effort on the part of some attorneys to examine these franchises to help these communities to do exactly what you're talking about. And I understand and I agree with you, but it's those providers are doing it based on their ability to capture revenue.
But the providers, this is a revenue, this is low-hanging fruit now. Because
well, what they're going to say is that they're operating under their franchise.
Yes.
They're within their bounds of franchise. They're going to say, look, we provide the service. If this guy doesn't want to sign on, that's because he doesn't want to pay for the cost. Then that's not our problem, and that's what they're telling the cities. And so I think that that's one aspect of this that's going to have to be looked at.
Right.
Is when you go to sit down with these communities, and whether it's done through SCABC, whoever has got to be able to have those answers. And we're trying to give that. I understand exactly what you're saying, but those companies are going to say, look, the franchise says we do this. This is our territory. This is all we have to do.
And I think that's that same question by all of the cities. So then you have that
Senator Sanders wants to say something.
No, I just wanted to say, we really can't work that out here today.
Right.
We need to.
That's another
That
meeting.
needs to be dealt with in another.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is a serious issue, so that is definitely another meeting. We're going to go to Mr. Stone, Mr. Nettles, the mayor, and then we are going to move on to the next section, okay? Yeah, we will finish this little round of questions and answers, and then I promise you, the next sections they should be. Y'all will keep them to basically, if you can, yes or no answers, okay? And we'll get through this quickly. Yes, Mr. Stone.
Real quickly, because I appreciate Ms. Morris and to talk about compliance, and as our company wants to extend our services deeper into the black belt community, we're looking forward to doing that. It's my understanding, because we assisted in some of the grant applications within GIA, that there should have been a sustainability budget proposed by you, and that there were already advertised rates that you would provide to anchor institutions and to MSOs and to other providers. That should have been part of that budget. If so, can you provide those for us?
I'm not familiar with the sustainability rate unless,
Because we're not a CLEC, we don't sell services. We take market comparisons, which is public information, and data comparative. It's our structured performer. That's sustainability of the network. So it was not taking your data or any carrier's data
So you didn't
and
have-
matching costs.
So you didn't have to provide advertised rates to anchor institutions or?
No, we do not sell services. We're just infrastructure.
The budget that you provided was based on just,
the placement of the fiber and the wireless.
but there had to be a sustainability piece of that.
There's sustainable revenue models. For example, what is a stress test rate or profitability on the network if you have one provider that offers just video only?
Okay.
Those scenarios, Booz Allen and Price Waterhouse took us through that process, and we came back with a number.
So the rates are still yet to be determined based on the for-profit organization or the.
No, sir. We don't sell services, so the rates is when you speak of rates, it's as if we're selling something.
The anchor institutions are providing middle mile access to anchor institutions.
That's between the service provider and that anchor institution to determine their cost. Because we've removed that CapEx component for the provider. So now we're talking about if it's $1,200 for T1 to go to X university, now that there's no CapEx, what is that rate?
Is the rate then, because it is an open architecture, the rate would be determined per mile, per village, per bandwidth?
That's correct. That's part of the analysis of getting the rate cost for infrastructure.
And that rate would be determined by the for-profit group that you mentioned? Or
That rate was determined in the rate.
okay, is that advertised, would we have access to that?
The pro forma is
Online. Everything's online.
Am I making sense? I mean,
Yeah, I'm
what
just-
I'm looking for, I want to know what my investment needs to be so I can go to you and say,
Yes.
you know, that's the problem.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
May I suggest that you just go straight to those other questions and then come back? It may help if you could go through those questions with your yes or no answer and then come back, because people are going to continue to raise their hand and you're never going to get to them until some people have done. If you could do that, I think you could, the ones you said you were going to get to, you could come back to them and it might help. Sometimes in a situation like this, those questions may answer a lot of folks' questions.
They really are moving to different areas of conversation, and really this piece that we are on right now is really the meat of it. The rest is kind of an update of where's the environmental study? Where is the ALDOT permitting? Those are very quick and easy things to answer. These are some of the things really I think people have been needing to hammer out and to really kind of talk through. If we could, because Mr. Nettles has had his hand up for quite some time, if you could please, is your line of questioning along this, and is it kind of basically something we can answer quickly?
Well, it kind of relates to the structure that you drew out, as well as the question about project changes. I was looking at online at the fourth quarter report, and if I understood what you said correctly, you said H&D is the construction management firm. The report says H&D is going to manage and operate the network. And I just read it. I pulled it up and read it. It's necessary. How do we reconcile the report to changes as we go along?
well, there are two, I mentioned this earlier, there are two ideas about who should efficiently operate this network. In the public-private partnership document, it clearly states that the SCABC will select the operator because that operator will report to the SCABC. We have been looking at what makes sense from an efficiency, from an operations standpoint. Should it be SCABC or should it be some other entity? The other entity that's being created is called ICE Alabama. And that company is also being poised. It was in the grant that ICE was going to be the network operator. But there were some issues with the original ICE that we worked out. But now we're at the point of determining, is it appropriate, is it proper for ICE, or is it proper for A2D to run that operation? And that's what we're working on internally as a team. Now, the SCABC's position is, it's in the grant, we should go with what's in the grant. I've got to look at it from the standpoint of what makes walking around sense. Can either one of them do it? Can either one of them financially support it on the short term? Because for 18 months, you got to work and operate in the rig. And we got to make sure that whoever you bring on to run that operation can sustain itself for a year and a half. Because there'll be no money coming in to them for that period of time.
Okay, all right, we are going to move on. If anyone needs to take a little break, I think we need to keep rolling. These next few sections are very quick, I believe they will be. If we end up going on too much longer, I think we need to take a 5-minute break. But if anyone needs to step out, we're going to move into project status, and we're going to keep going unless we just have a mass amount of people that say no. Let's stop. I got to stand up. If you need to stand up, stand up. But I do know people need to get on the road.
And you know, there are some of us that have to have lunch.
Yes. Okay.
Breakfast.
Let's move on very quickly. These should be very quick. If they're not, let's resolve them later. What is the status of the environmental assessment? You mentioned before it was filed on February 1st. You have not heard back.
Right, we provided all the documentation and supporting information to the NTIA, and we're waiting for the approval.
Okay. What is the status of all the ALDOT permitting and the $100,000 bond statewide that must be approved by ALDOT prior to breaking ground?
Yeah, I mean, where we are right now is we are working closely with them, preparing the permit documents for the initial phase of the project. We're looking to have that done here probably in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, and dirt cannot be turned over until then, right?
I'm sorry?
Dirt cannot be turned over until that and the assessment.
Yeah, the EPA report has to be completed before we can submit permits to ALDOT.
What about the permits through the counties or municipalities?
Right now, we're just dealing with the state because this all the backbone is completely placed on the state right now.
So there will be.
Yes, there will, but it's a time.
So that permitting process has not begun yet. Is that right?
As you can see, we're engaged each city, county. We're building out a phase plan. So obviously the main core is Middlemont, so we got to get that turned over to ALDOT. And that's the biggest thing.
Okay. What is the status of the land lease agreements for the network terminals?
We have not started that process yet. We have
Okay.
secured a vendor to do that, but we haven't started that process.
All right. What is the status of the field site office in Haydenville? That was mentioned before. When do you propose or suspect that that office will be open and staffed in place?
That office will be open and staffed in place